I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. First item of business, approve the meeting minutes for October 2016 for the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. We have a motion.
I make a motion we accept the minutes as read. Jane Skinner.
We have a motion to accept the minutes as submitted. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes passed. First item under other business, motion to nominate and elect a chairman for a one-year term. Open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to nominate our current chairman, Mr. Earl Garvin, to continue on.
I second that motion.
We have a nomination for myself and a second. Do we have any other nominations? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Our second item under other business, motion to nominate and elect a vice chair for a one-year term. Open the floor for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Skinner.
I have a motion to nominate Ms. Skinner. I will second that. Any other nominations? All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. First item under new business, review of the annual report for the 2016-2017 permit year.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to make this really quick. So I submitted back in August we have to turn in an annual report every year to the Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation, Water Resources Division, and that's what you have a copy of. Right here, I placed that for you to just glance over. It's pretty similar. It's a standard document that we do every year, so it's the same kind of thing that we did last year. Just ask if we're following all the protocol for our 6 minimum measures, which we're going to go over here in just a second. If we've had, how many violations we've had, how we handled those violations, and so on and so forth. We actually began a new permit in the middle of the 2016-17 year. We got our notice of coverage in February. We're one of the first MS4s here in the area to go ahead and get coverage under the new permit. They've had some questions on certain things, and so some MS4s have delayed going under this new permit, staying under their old, but we actually have been fairly proactive here in Laverne. Some of our ordinances, like our stream buffer, are a little more proactive, and so we fit into compliance with that new permit. So I went ahead and submitted, and we got our notice of coverage, so we're already under the new permit. There are, as always, 6 minimum measures that we as an MS4 have to meet. For those of you who are new or not familiar, MS4 means Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So when you hear the term MS4, that's all it means. But basically, that's us as the city of Laverne. So we have 6 minimum measures that we have to comply with: a public education and outreach component, public participation and involvement component, an illicit discharge detection and elimination component, construction site runoff control, post-construction and permanent stormwater runoff, and a pollution prevention and good housekeeping component. And we're just going to quickly go through each one. Public education and outreach, we're still working with Miss Bonnie Irvin as our Project WET coordinator. We have a contract that we share with Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Rutherford County. Miss Irvin is a part-time employee. She works at the office, at the Rutherford County office, but her salary is paid. We break it up based on population, and each of the 4 entities pay a portion of her salary. She's absolutely invaluable. She's a wealth of knowledge. She does our public education requirements. If you were out at Old Timers Day, you saw her. She comes to our stream cleanups, and we'll get a little more involved in that and a little bit of some things she and I have been able to do together here in Laverne. And we also collaborate with the other Rutherford County areas and do joint activities as well. Excuse me. That's Miss Bonnie in the top right there, actually. showing off one of our new toys. It basically is a replica of a system. The top has holes that represents rain, and you pour it in as if it were you put sponges down, and you could build a town in the bottom, and that's a forest, and you pour it, and the houses stand, and then you get rid of the forest, and you leave it bare, and that would be asphalt where everything runs off, and it floods the houses out and stuff, and it kind of gives kids an idea of what pervious, impervious means and what the importance is of green space. The bottom one's called an Enviroscape. It's a similar situation. It's contoured and grooved. We use spices, and cinnamon might be dirt. We might use oregano for fertilizer, things to represent. You build your little town, then you spray it with water to make it rain. And you see how that rainwater makes its way to the river below and how all those pollutants are carried with it. So it's just a really good tool to use, particularly with children, to give them sort of a visual of why it's so important to only rain down the drain, to pick up our litter, not to over-fertilize, all these good housekeeping things that we encourage, why that's important and what that means to our groundwaters. So this was at Old Timers Day. She participates, does that with us every year. Like I said, she's fabulous. We had, back in May, we had our annual stream cleanup. It was a little brisk that day, but it was a really nice day. We had a pretty good turnout, about 60 people. 50 of those were affiliated with Scouts, either Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. I was really proud of all my Girl Scouts because, as you know, I'm heavily involved with them, so I was very proud of my girls. But we had a really good turnout, collected lots and lots of trash, and Box 100 was generous enough to come out. We provided hamburgers, and they came out and grilled for us, so we had a nice lunch after, and it was a very nice day. Some other things that we did, we participated in 100K Tree Day. The Tennessee Environmental Council, this is an event they do every year. We make a donation to the council when we get seedlings. And this past year they did it a little different. In years past we got X number of seedlings and we did it first come, first serve. This last year we did get a certain number of seedlings for our donation, but they also put us on a list of locations, distribution locations, so people in the area could go ahead and pre-order their trees and then tell them, where they wanted to pick them up, what's the closest area to them. So if they chose Laverne, we had a list with their name and exactly what trees they wanted so that we could have those ready for them. It went very well. I think it went very smoothly, and we handed out probably, if I had to guess, about 500 seedlings. So very successful. I felt like we have a couple planted in the stormwater building, and they're flourishing. They're doing very well. We participated, again, since this is the 2016-17 year, I put the 2016 Trail of Treats. I was out there this past Saturday for this year's as well, but we went out to the Trail of Treats. Not only did we give out candy, but last year we had coloring books that were about good environmental stewardship, particularly stormwater management. So we gave those away as well as the candy. Again, reaching out to a younger audience. They read it as they're coloring, they're looking at the activities, and hopefully it's making a positive impact there. Miss Bonnie got us invited to Rock Springs Elementary has a science club. I believe it's 4th grade, it may be 4th and 5th. They were a little older, but they had a science club, so we got to go to one of their science club meetings and talk about groundwater. And there's a game that we play, it's the journey of a raindrop, basically, and the different ways that rain is exposed to different environments and how the water cycle works. And so that was a really fun afternoon with the kids there. And that was all Miss Bonnie that she coordinated that. I went to the event and helped, but she got the ball rolling on that. The third part, that would be public education and participation. So the number 3 is our illicit discharge detection. What that is that's being able to determine where non-legal discharges are happening throughout the city. That's where we really depend on our residents. That's pretty much exactly what that is. I mean, sometimes we're fortunate and we just drive up on something and we say, well, that doesn't look right, and we can handle it. But 9 times out of 10, we're depending on the citizens to say, I saw something, it wasn't right, let me call and report it. So you can go via the city website, and we have a page where you can send a complaint, whether it works for us, it works for codes, it's the same form, and you can basically report any illicit discharges that you've seen. You can put your contact information on it, or you can do it anonymously. Or of course, you can contact Stormwater Department directly by phone or my email, which we'll see here at the end, and it's also, all that information's on the website as well. The fourth measure is construction runoff control. So we're trying to keep all sediment, all dirt and debris on construction sites as we are growing and developing. Scott Warwick is our full-time construction site erosion control inspector. That's what he does every week, 40 hours a week. He goes to various sites, makes sure that they have to present to us before they begin a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So he has that. He makes sure they're following that. They're supposed to be doing weekly inspections on their own and keeping record of those inspections, and then he goes out once a month and does an inspection on behalf of the city. If we have a large rain event and we have some areas that we know we've had trouble with in the past, we'll pop in and do additional inspections. And of course, if a citizen calls, maybe they live near some construction and they're saying, brown water running down their street or whatever the problem is, they call, and then we go out and address that as well. And then before the project is accepted and it goes, it's completely accepted and they get their C of O, we do a final erosion, we do a final stabilization check as well. And that brings us into the post-construction stormwater management. So like I said, we make sure that the site is stabilized, all permanent features like ditches, pipes, grassy areas, detention ponds, all those are in place before we allow the business to get its CO. And then after that, they have a maintenance bond that they keep for a year, so we can go back at a year. If we're having issues, if something's not working right, we can have them correct it during that time. Once it's accepted, anything in easements and right-of-ways, we take responsibility for, and so that takes us to our service request log. So over time, pipes will get crushed, a car will run over them, they'll get crushed. A ditch will fill in over time just as dirt relocates. And so we'll get phone calls of people who are having issues with the storm drains or some kind of drainage issue near their home. And so it's just a basic little log. We put it in, we can give it a status. If something's safety oriented, we can give it a priority status so that we basically, before we do anything else, we jump straight to it. The rest of them, if they're not emergencies, we try to do them as best we can as they come in, trying to be fair. But we do also, if we have several small ones that are all clumped in one area, we will put those together just to be good stewards of our time, even if they're not necessarily in the order that they were called in. But Scott Anderson is our foreman. You'll see him as the assignee on all the examples. They go to him, and then he and we get together once a week, go through the list and kind of prioritize what projects that we can get to. And we obviously have to work around the weather, schedules, summer, when people are on vacation and stuff. Some jobs lend themselves easily to a small crew. Some you have to have all hands on deck. But he and I get together and we determine, which projects are done when. And then our last is pollution prevention and good housekeeping. Every permit cycle, we're required to have a city employee pollution prevention training. Public Works has their own stormwater pollution prevention plan. They do their own inspections. That goes into our annual report. And then probably it'll actually be done this winter, when things are a little slower, is when we'll do it, and we'll request all city employees come in, and I'll take 15 minutes to go over just some basic good housekeeping rules so that we as city employees are doing our part to keep our storm, to keep only rain in our drains, make sure we're being good environmental stewards. The street department has a litter and trash removal. That's one of the things that the inmates do. They'll go up and down the main, you'll see them a lot on Murfreesboro Road or Waldron Road, and pick up, and then Harley sends me a list of hours, and we log the hours of street side litter removal that we have for the city. And then of course the stormwater department has the street sweeper, and that runs most every day, weather permitting, and unless we have a large job where we need extra hands, they may pull Sean off of the sweeper to help with the crew here and there. But as long as everything's flowing the way it's supposed to be and the weather is in our favor, we try to sweep every day. He has route maps that he follows, and we try to sweep and get all areas once, if not twice a year. But there are a lot of streets in Laverne, so it takes a year to get them all knocked out. And then you start all over. And that is number 3. That finishes item number 3. Do you want me to just move on?
We'll move on to discussion.
So I wanted to let you guys know just a little bit about some new business for this 2017-18 year that we're going into. We did something really fun. This was our second year, and it exploded. The first year we had 4 classes, I think, or 6 classes. This year we had 49 classes. There's an event that we open to all of the Murfreesboro City and all of Rutherford County elementary schools, and it's a water quality education class. They get to take a field trip, but the field trips have to fall into the core curriculum and be applicable to what they're learning. And so we had different stations. My station was a water testing station. We tested the creek water for the pH, the turbidity, its temperature, and its dissolved oxygen content. But there were lots and lots of different booths that the children could visit. We were on a creek. This one, we've rotated. It was in Smyrna last year, or Murfreesboro this past year, Smyrna the year before. It's going to rotate around. And we were on a Lytle Creek. And so we were right there at the creek. So the kids even got in the creek and looked for critters and things. It was a lot of fun. And the TWRA came out. They had a couple of different booths. There was a fishery organization that was out that had some booths. A dairy association was out. So we had a lot of groups that came out, and we had about 1,000 kids. It was a controlled chaos, but it was a lot of fun. And so we are really, this next year, going to look to try to strongly encourage. We didn't have any representation this year from some of the Laverne schools, and I was disappointed in that. So we're going to push real hard to get into those schools and push harder to try to see some Laverne teachers bring their students out next year. We have been able to go in and do Project Wet classes in the past for the teachers, but this was really a lot of fun, and we already are making our plans for next year. So I'd like to see more participation from some of the Laverne elementary schools. I just got back a few weeks ago from the 2017 annual TINSA, Tennessee Stormwater Association Conference. Lots of good information. You kind of walk out with a little bit of brain overload, but you do a lot of networking. I get to meet with a lot of other MS4 coordinators, and we sit and have lunch, and we talk to each other. What are you doing in your city? What are you doing in your city? And then, of course, the classes themselves, the seminars that we go to are all excellent. Professional development hours for myself, and then just a ton of invaluable knowledge that I bring back every year. I get so excited when I go. I come back so gung-ho. But and I actually was honored to be asked to come. They did a pre-conference Project Wet workshop where we taught some other MS4 coordinators how to do the classes for teachers in their local area. And I was asked to help with that and was able to present at that, and it was very, very exciting to be able to do that with them. Like I said yesterday, we went out this year as well to the Trail of Treats. We had coloring and sticker books, again, talking about recycling and water conservation, good environmental stewardship, try to really reach a younger audience. I mean, they're growing quickly. They are our future. So we like to... And they're so open-minded at this stage, and they're so excited, and they love their planet, and they love to learn, and they're just really, their hearts and minds are open to it. So they're just an excellent target demographic, for trying to get some of our good environmental stewardship education out to. And then the last thing that I have for you is, some long-term goals when we present our annual report, and when we and certainly when we file our notice of intent to get under the new permit, they ask, what are your 5-year goals? And some of the things that I included on this permit cycle was additional staff. I have talked a little bit with Mr. Brown. We will continue to discuss that between now and next year when we have to vote on the budget. But if we could add one more laborer to our staff, it would help us tremendously. We have a city of 37,000, and I have a 4-man crew. So it would help, and so if somebody's out sick or so, I mean, it really cripples us a lot. So it would be great to have another set of hands there. Some of our equipment, we didn't purchase new this year. We thought everything was in good shape, and then the summer rolled around and our equipment proved otherwise. We've had quite a bit of trouble with some of our equipment. We did purchase a new vehicle for stormwater this year, so next year we will try to purchase one or possibly two more, and then maybe update some of our equipment. And then for some of our larger projects, again, like I said, I have a 4-man crew and a city of nearly 40,000 people to service. What I'm looking at doing, and I've submitted my first draft to Mr. Brown to look at, is we were going to do a bid for a contract for land disturbance work. So basically, if there's a job that's really big and it's a little bit beyond what my guys can handle with our equipment that we have, then we have a contract on hand that we can call and say, hey, we've got this, 1 mile project, such and so, and we have an agreed upon rate, and that we have, X company come out and do that for us. And that would help us to stay on schedule better, because the smaller jobs that we know we can tackle, we can dedicate to them instead of losing a whole week of our manpower trying to deal with one large job. We could, get 5 small jobs knocked out in that same amount of time. So that is one of my goals, coming up in the next 1 to 5 years. I think that's all that I have for you. Of course, that's the phone number. That's my direct line, actually, so that'll reach me if anybody has any questions for stormwater. And that's all I have. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. Cruz?
No, not at the moment.
I'm good.
All right,
Well, the new guy on the block has a question.
yes, sir.
Excuse my ignorance, but what is MS4?
MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So what that means is Laverne, some cities have combined sewers where your rainwater and your sewer water, it's all one system. We do not. Our sewer is contained and that goes to be treated, but our stormwater goes into its own system and that goes straight to the lake. It does not get treated. So that's again why we push the importance of only rain down the drain, because anything we put on the ground, any pollutants, oil, animal waste, we over-fertilize, any of those types of things, they just wash right down the drains or go into the ditches, into those systems, and that makes its way to the creek untreated.
So, when the stormwater drains themselves, they're on the street, that water that goes in those drains is not treated later
sir.
on, is that right?
That's correct. It is not treated. It makes its way to, we have Hurricane Creek, and we have Sinking Creek, and we have Finch Branch that run through Laverne, and then it all makes its way to the lake untreated. Yes, sir.
Okay, so something like people cutting grass and spraying it on the street is a detriment. Okay.
That is an illicit discharge. It's one that we request that people ask, because yes, that affects the dissolved oxygen content in the water, because you have more materials degrading, and that can kill your aquatic life. So yes, we ask people not to put their leaves in the ditches, not to put grass clippings down, into the gutter. We've caught people in the past. My guys drove up. It was just by chance. They drove up on a gentleman who was changing his oil over the storm grate in his street, So, and those are the kind of things, that's what we're about. We don't want that because that affects the quality of our lake, which is going to impact the quality of our lives. That's where we get our drinking water, and then Dad and little Bobby go fishing. People take their kayaks out and whatever. And so that affects all of that. That's why what we do is so important.
So, let's, for instance, someone was caught putting oil in the drainage. What are there penalties, or is it just codes violations, or is it
We catch somebody, say we catch somebody putting a chemical into the drain, we have to call in hazmat. We have to have that treated, and we can, based on the way I understand the ordinance as I've read it, we can charge them. So if Mr. Smith pours oil down the drain and it costs us $3,000 to have that cleaned up, the city can charge Mr. Smith $3,000 if they choose to get compensated for that loss. Now that goes above my pay grade on how far they're willing to go to enforce it, but we certainly cite them, yes sir, and I sick codes after them.
So if it's beyond your pay grade, where does it go next?
It goes to codes, code summons them, they'll come to court, a judge will say, yes, you're guilty, no, you're not, you're guilty, pay the fine, and if they refuse to pay the fine, they can appeal it and go all the way to the county, or it becomes I assume it becomes a police issue if they just won't pay it, because, you know, you go, try to go
Well, if
after
it's a
them.
court order, then
Yeah,
there is.
yes, there will be a court order to do it. How it gets handled if they violate the court order,
Yeah,
that goes beyond what I know.
yeah, okay.
Very good.
So where might I go to find out about that?
You know, honestly, I guess if you called Randolph, our codes director, Randolph Salyers, he would be able to tell you the process much better than I could as far as if they are in violation of that court order, where it goes from there, how it's handled from there.
Well, if I'm going to be a contributing member here, that's something I'd want to learn about, I think.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Very good, and thank you for the report, ma'am. Glad the city's doing very well. With that being said, this concludes the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board of October 30th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Meeting adjourned.